It is time for another episode of the Cultural Hall. This is your first episode of the Cultural Hall. Well, what we do is we talk about things in and around the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And you're wondering maybe sometimes as you listen to an episode, how does this fit in with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? I promise you this, there is always some sort of connection. Sometimes it's a really, really, really slight connection, and sometimes it's just something that we justify so that we can talk about the particular story. But it always comes back to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. My name is Richie T, and here as we start this episode, normally we do what's called the temple ticker, which is all about temples of the church. We do that in a last part of an episode, but because we haven't talked with Corey K. Ward, the Pharaoh himself, in such a long time, as the scriptures say, the last shall be first and the first shall be last. So we make him the first segment of this episode. How are you, Corey?
Doing great. Thanks for that introduction.
Yeah, see? Like just shy of making you a future leader of the church. I don't know. I went to a conference, a podcast conference, and though this is a show available in podcast form, some of the things that I learned that I don't do is that I need to give context because there are always new people listening. And so I wanted to make sure that I get that out and look forward to it, guys. There's other changes coming. We talk all about the temples. We call it the temple ticker. It's been a while since we've chatted, which means we've got lots and lots of news to get to. So take me where you will. Where are we going?
Yeah, as promised, coming off the summer vacation, August is a busy week or a busy month for temple stuff. There's a temple dedication on August 13th. The Saratoga Springs, Utah temple was dedicated. It is the 179th temple to be dedicated, and it's the 18th in Utah. And so, yeah, President Henry Eyring was there. He dedicated it. And then, just as a funsie, the night before, there was a YSA Fun Run that was right before the dedication. So.
And that fun run is part of that huge, like YSA 20,000 or 50,000 strong different events that they did here in the state of Utah, right? Concert with like One Republic and some people from The Voice or American Idol and all these different things. There was a big fireside as part of it. Coincidence, was the run anywhere near the Saratoga Springs Temple?
It started there at the temple. I think it ended there at the temple too. So kind of in a loop around the neighborhood.
Oh, very cool. They know what they're doing then, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think there was about 5,000 people that participated.
Cool.
The city councilor, Kristen Yee, was the person that was there to kick it off, and she ran there too. So
do you do much running? Are you a runner, Corey K. Ward?
I dabbled in it during the pandemic when all the gyms closed, but after that I just kind of stopped.
Yeah. You said no thanks. I'll pass. I shared this with you because it is temple related. So one of the coolest experiences that I've ever had in my entire life that I don't think I've ever shared before was involved running and a temple. So I'll tell you briefly. Maybe I'll get into it longer in some other episode or something like that. But I got to serve my mission in the Cleveland mission. Kirtland was part of it. And we were, I think maybe I was the zone leader, or maybe the zone leaders had us come up. I'm not sure. I don't remember that part of it. But I got to stay the night at one of the historic homes in Kirtland, because that's just where the missionaries live back then.
Okay.
I don't think that's the case now that they have like the Kirtland Village. And I remember myself and one of the other elders, don't remember who that is, but we decided, you know what we want to do? We want to get up and we want to run early in Kirtland when no one is essentially awake, right? It's not a very busy road anyway. I mean, it's busy-ish, but it's, so we get up and I can't describe it because, it'll sound like I'm just making stuff up, but I honestly, when I was running, it was like the town was alive at the time of the prophet Joseph Smith. And it's not like I saw like ghosts or spirits or anything like that, but it was like I was in the town and part of the time, like there was a flurry about the temple. There were people going to, and again, I didn't see it. I can't explain it. One of the coolest experiences that I've ever had.
Early mornings, they bring your mind to different places.
Yeah, it was cool. Very, very cool. And then 5,000 young single adults were there at the end of my run. So it was very,
Nice.
Very similar to that. Any reason why Elder Eyring was the one that dedicated it? Obviously, because he's in the first presidency. But I mean, does he have any sort of connection? Or sometimes with these temple dedications, they grew up there, they served a mission there, they.
Well, Saratoga Springs is a relatively new community, no
Mhm.
one lived there 15 years ago. So, but it was one of the last batches of temples to be announced by President Monson. So maybe having President Eyring there, who was, from the first presidency of President Monson, maybe that was kind of a closing thing. I don't
Hmm.
know.
I'll take that. We get to some temple open houses beginning and now, smack in the middle of it. It's my favorite expletive temple because when you say the name of it, it sounds like you're really angry.
That's right. The temple in Yuba City, that's called the Feather River California Temple. It opened, and it will be open until September 9th.
For the open house.
For the open house, yes. And then dedicated in October. One of the big, I guess, themes of this temple is that this Yuba City is a really diverse religious community. So they had, everyone from all these walks of life there. It's also really notable that the church has stayed in contact with this Sikh family that sold the property to the church when they originally built the meeting house in the 1970s, I think. And they were ecstatic when they heard that they were going to build a temple there. So the family of that individual that owned the land was there to tour the temple, and many other people in that community also were there.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting. There's a huge piece about it because the people that actually sold the land, I think they're dead and gone. It's the either children or grandchildren of those individuals, and they're like, "How do you feel that they're building a temple?" And I'm going to take them at their word in that it mattered to them quite a bit. We're grateful to have this community, and man, the fact that we had the land or whatever. But when I first saw the article, what I thought was, of course, these people are going to be ecstatic. The church paid them a lot of money for the land 50 years ago. How do you guys
Sure.
feel about this? Great. We haven't, we invested that money and we haven't had to work in a long time, or that paid for all of our kids to go to college. We feel great. Whatever. That's great. Put a temple there. What's a temple? Go ahead. But that's my cynical, horrible nature of being a human being that I am. I'm just going to take it at their word that they like the religious diversity of Yuba City.
That's okay. Something unique about this temple is that they have a grove of olive trees that they've transported to the grounds of the temple. The olive trees are like over 100 years old.
Wow.
Also, the temple has a lot of arches. Definitely you can see that from the outside of the temple and the plaza. Like the celestial room, the endowment rooms are all like arched themed. So you have that. You have the California poppy, the almond blossoms, all that stuff for the designs.
Is there any significance as to what olive orchard that those trees came from, or is it just the symbolism of the olive?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you got homework then. Now we go to Texas.
Texas, the Rio Grande Valley, the McAllen Texas Temple opened. Will also be open until September 9th for tours. Missionaries came to this area in the 1920s, actually, Spanish-speaking missionaries. And so actually in today, all the stakes in McAllen, Brownsville area, they have more Spanish-speaking congregations than English ones. And then there's an additional 4 stakes on the Mexican side. So to also complement the 3 stakes on the Texas side.
So this temple district takes 3 stakes from the United States and 4 from Mexico that feed into this. Is that how that works?
Likely. It may, as we saw for many years in the San Diego temple, it's hard for Mexican citizens to sometimes get across the border to attend the temple. So they may end up still going to Monterey, which is 4 hours away rather than just across the river. But yeah, this was part of the same valley.
I don't know this at all, and I don't suspect that you do either, but I wonder if there is differences in religious observations if you want to come in for a religious reason, as far as, citizens of a different country coming into the United States. or like because it's like, look, that building, that's where I'm going. You can look, I'm going from this place right here to that building. Take my keys, I'll be back this afternoon. Like, I wonder if there's ever things like that where they're like, sure, that's fine, go, it's right there, of course, come back. Or if it is just as strict with that as everything else.
Yeah, I mean, it still requires a passport, which is
Well,
just as
sure.
it's still hard to obtain, and you have to get a visa to go to the United States. So even just for trips like that, so it may just be easier for other people to take a 5 hour bus ride to another temple. But yeah, we saw the interior of the temple. It's a Spanish colonial theme, so one of the more unique temples in the United States, I would say. For that, you use a lot of citrus blossoms, scrolls, ribbons, and then they're called quatrefoils, which is kind of like a it kind of looks like a flower with 4 sides, basically.
Like a clover?
A little bit. You see it in the like in the window in the celestial room. You see it in the plaza.
Cool. And
Then
by
you
the way,
also see a lot. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and you'll find links to all of these, by the way, in the show notes. So if you're like, wait, I want to see this, just click on the links in the show notes.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, you see a lot of greens and blues. You see a lot of blue bonnets, which is the state flower of Texas. So
we go to the Bangkok, Thailand temple, which also some young single adult connection there as well.
yeah, that's right. So it's opening this week for media and VIP tours. And before the media even got to go into the temple, a group of about 375 young single adults were able to be the first to tour the temple with Elder Gong, who was there to head off the open house.
Which is pretty significant when you think about, the opportunity to go through the temple with an apostle. That seems pretty cool. I wonder, and I don't actually wonder, it feels like the church making a greater push with the youth and temples, especially now that temples are more available, where we used to have the cultural celebrations around the temple, and that would bring the youth to the temple. I think that they're kind of saying, well, that was great and all, but maybe we should, teach them about why it's so important and what we do in the temple rather than, these people came here. Can you sing their songs? Can you,
Yeah,
can you
less
look at
about
their
the leaders
costumes?
and more
Yeah.
about them. Yeah, that's a good thought. So yeah, later that afternoon, Elder Gong led some media and government people. The governor of Bangkok was there, as well as the former governor of Bangkok, who's actually a member of the church, attended BYU and everything.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then they also interviewed the construction manager who joined the church in the process of building the temple. So he has a unique story. Also, the Salt Lake Tribune, Peggy Fletcher Stack, religion writer, wrote a piece about the Bangkok Temple, which I think is worth looking at. She looks at the history of missionary work in Thailand, going back to the 1970s. She revisits the Buddha desecration incident, which happened and really kind of hindered church growth for a decade or so.
Do you know that story well enough to tell it in like a 10-second version?
Yeah, just like 6 missionaries were assigned to Thailand from the Hong Kong mission. Some of them go to visit a Buddha temple, and 2 of them like sit on the head. They take some pictures. The pictures get out to a newspaper, and then there's just a big cry of like, what are these Mormons doing in our country, desecrating our temples? And so, yeah, it took a little bit to recover from that.
Yeah. Yeah. Geez. And then you have some interesting things about the interior photos about that temple as well.
Yeah, well, the temple is actually one of the tallest temples, in the top 2 or 3 tallest temples. It's almost as tall as Washington, D.C. at
Wow.
250 feet. It's about, I think, 6 stories tall. So it's in a very urban area next to a metro station. It looks a lot like one of the most famous buildings in Thailand, which is the Wat Arun, I guess is what you say. It has one kind of central tower with 8 smaller spires around it. And then similar to what they did in Paris, they put a Christ statue out in the courtyard of that. And in the interior, they used a lot of diamond shapes, lotus flowers, as well as it's the herringbone pattern, which is kind of like, it looks like a woven leaf pattern. So you see that all around the temple and the woodwork and everything.
It's significant to note, and I'm surprised that you didn't, Corey, that the Bangkok, Thailand temple, a fulfillment of prophecy,
I'm
Uh,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, but you didn't mention it. Might I quote a small portion of the prophecy about the Bangkok temple to
Go
you?
ahead.
Bangkok, Oriental setting, and the city don't know what the city is getting. Further on, one night in Bangkok and the world is your oyster. The bars are temples, but the pearls ain't free. You'll find a god in every golden cloister, and if you're lucky, then the god's a she. So think about that. I'm not sure that it's exactly
Was
applicable
that
in this
written
situation.
by ChatGPT? I don't
No,
know.
that's lyrics from the song Chess that whenever I hear, or from One Night in Bangkok from the musical Chess, that whenever I hear Bangkok ever, I can't ever disassociate the city of Bangkok and the song from the musical Chess. That's how my brain works. Let's go to
Great.
yeah, great, he says. Let's go to, this was a surprise to me. Actually, dare I say shocked, I tell you, about the temple renovation for the Manhattan Temple.
Yeah, I think it was a shock for most people that weren't in the know. The church announced that it will be closing in 2024 for a 3-year renovation. That also another urban setting for a temple. But basically, they're kind of going to do what they did in Hong Kong, where they redid the exterior of the temple completely.
Mm-hmm.
And so we saw a rendering of what the new temple will look like. It will have a lot more art glass, a lot more art deco theme, which is, kind of native to New York, I would say. Has gold columns, really colorful stained glass, and then a larger, more substantial steeple that's on there. And then it'll have a golden kind of this huge kind of golden framed steeple. And Moroni will still be there. He's not been taken out. So
I think it's interesting. Tell me what your thoughts are on this, because I go, well, if it's just an outside thing, where were we 25 years ago? Why didn't we just do the outside thing then? And maybe that's Monday morning quarterbacking, or some term that neither of us would ever be prone to use. But like, why would we do that now, where there are temples? Because it's not going to be cheap. Saints in that particular area are not going to be able to use the temple in Manhattan for 3 years. Like, why do you think that that's significant that we would do that now, when other temples could be built, other things, like other temples that have mold damage, destruction, could face maybe earthquake, something? Why would we do this now?
yeah, so something important is that the church owned this building for maybe even many decades before it was a temple. So it was a stake center, and then they basically built the temple in the upper floors of this building. And I hear that it's from the 1970s, so it's not necessarily a new building even. So it need that renovation that these older temples need. And it's just a new way to, I guess, they said that they're going to upgrade the stake center, the meeting house that's on the 3rd floor. And then also what's interesting is that the rendering shows a Christus statue in the kind of the door frame of the temple, which I think they didn't say this in the press release, but I think it means that there'll be a new visitor center right there in Manhattan. So it's probably one of the temples that has the most foot traffic near it. So it's a good opportunity to have a new outreach center for the church.
I like the idea of the Christus there being at the entrance, and like that being where you have to show your temple recommend. I think it's a little bit more on the nose. I know that I hope that this isn't some sort of sacrilegious, but it's like you're walking up to the Savior himself and being like, you know what, maybe not. Maybe
Well,
I'm not quite where I need to be. Bloop, turn right around.
they kind of have this in the Hyde Park Chapel in London, where they have a Christus statue right there by the door. It's also notable that this temple, it's a stake center. There's some offices for the church, and so it's going to feel less like a kind of a building that's walled off, because you can go there to attend church, to go to the visitor center or the family history center. So it's going to feel like a more temple that you can invite people to that aren't members of the church.
I love it. We've got a bunch still to get through. We can go through them pretty quick. Temple sites that have been announced.
Yeah, the San Jose, California temple. It will be built in Sunnyvale, California, which is just outside of San Jose on Fremont Avenue. It's just about 10 or 15 minutes away from that Apple Park spaceship building that's in Cupertino, if you know where that is.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a single story, 30,000 square foot temple. It's where a current meeting house is. So they noted that, the property's already zoned for a temple. So you don't need to have some zoning change. That hopefully the neighbors won't be up in arms about this because it's already a place for religious use. So
Yeah, not like other places, which I know we'll talk about. Bolivia.
yeah, La Paz, Bolivia temple will be built in the Calacoto neighborhood, which I talked to a returned missionary from La Paz, and he said that's the best neighborhood in La Paz. It's going to be about an 18,000 square foot temple.
Teresina, is that how you say that? Brazil?
I believe so. Yeah, it's going to be built kind of in the center of town, just close to one of the rivers that flows through the town, the Poti River. It's going to be about 25,000 square feet.
And Natal, Brazil.
Yeah, it's going to be built in the southern part of the city in Nova Parna Marim, I guess is what you say.
Nailed it.
It's going to be a single story temple of about 20,000 square feet. So
interesting. There was an article this last week, and maybe we can find it and put it in the show notes as well, about how many states there are in the country of Brazil. Way more than you think. And in nations like the States, as Brazil is divided essentially into, like state, like provinces or whatever, how many some of them have, like 83 stakes. And I don't know. I got to get past this thing where I think that the United States is where this is at. The church is everywhere else. It's bigger everywhere else than the United States. What is that? Centrist national. I don't know. I'm something. I'm something that I need to be broader. That's what I am.
US centric.
Yes. You know what I also need to be? I need to be a citizen of Cody, Wyoming, so I can get on the board and I can make votes that don't matter and then have the mayor repeal them. What's going on? It seems like a train wreck in Cody, Wyoming.
It is. It's been and the media covers this like it's a big specular. I don't know. So yeah, it was approved maybe. The Planning and Zoning Board voted to approve the temple, and the church made some agreements to restrict the lumens of output and the hours that they would have lights in the parking lot, and they would have motion sensors so that when there's no one there, it's not shining. They would turn off the lights at a certain time, and then they offered to lower the building height to 85 feet. When they voted on the approval, that restriction was not in the agreement. So it was unclear if the church still agreed to do that or not. And so kind of in response, the mayor of Cody has held off in issuing building permits, which is needed to proceed with the construction of the temple. So there's kind of some confusion whether they knew what they were voting for, whether the church was, playing hardball, trying to negotiate with them. And so now the city council is kind of waiting to see what the church's lawsuits will do, if they'll get a hearing. And then on top of that, the neighborhood group that's been fighting this, there's about 11 people that are fighting this. They also added a lawsuit, and they want the judge to reverse the board's decision. And so this is going to be held up for a while the judicial process goes out.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about it in the news later in this episode, because there was a great editorial piece that we'll share. Maybe I'll even read it because I think it's pretty well written. Shares the sentiment of a lot of people. I mean, here's the deal. So the church now builds the temple, say that they go, listen, guys, we're doing it. Lawsuits come through and we do it. It's a town divided. Half the town doesn't want this temple as it is. That seems like a lose situation. And some people would be like, well, they don't, the citizens don't understand the blessing that they get by having the temple and all that. And I just don't think it has to be this way. So I'm hoping that, someone comes in and goes, guys, how can this be a better situation for all? And they look at it and they go, okay, well, we've ordered these parts that have come in trucks and are sitting on the property, and we just need to assemble them. Let's, maybe that's a different temple somewhere else, or maybe we need to go back to the literal drawing board and make something else. we want a temple here and we don't want to be, this point of controversy throughout the town. It just seems like poorly handled.
Yeah, we saw in Tooele that the church just said, yeah, we're going to move the temple. If the neighbors don't like it, we're just going to move it to avoid contention. And so it's unclear why they're not doing that in this location. So
well, and in essence, doubling down, saying, "Oh yeah, you're a lawsuit. We'll sue you." I don't know. I doesn't make sense to me. I'm hoping that we get further information about all that. I know we've got lots to get to. Let's get to the Provo, Utah temple.
Yeah, the Provo City Design Review Committee, they looked at it at the replacement that will be built, the temple that will be rebuilt after the Provo temple is demolished, starting in February. It also noted that the whole site of the temple is going to change. That big walk up from the MTC that you go, that's pretty steep to walk up to the temple. They're actually going to reduce that slope so that it's easier to walk to the temple, I guess.
Well, then people get tired. It's a long walk.
No, it's going to be a little bit shorter though, because it's going to be a little bit closer to the MTC and not as steep. And so then this new temple will actually be a little bit taller, like I don't know how many feet taller, 50 feet taller, but be more or less the same size.
It looks significantly larger though too.
Perhaps.
Is it square foot wise?
I think it's almost the same square footage.
Interesting. It's a beautiful temple. It doesn't look a single thing like how it does now. And there's a Moroni in the temple now, yes?
Yes.
And there is not one showing in the rendering.
That's correct.
Interesting to note. Let's go to Guam. Now this temple is reopening, but for a different reason.
Yeah, it was damaged by a typhoon. Water damage came from the rain there. So now it's open again. So.
And then we end with upcoming open houses and exciting news that has not been shared about the St. George, Utah temple.
Tell me about it. What's exciting news?
So I got an email.
Okay.
I think it's a mistake, but they said, "Hey, we'd love to have you come down for a media day for the St. George, Utah temple." And so I'm going down with my dad, who, when I said, "Hey, Dad, would you be interested?" I got halfway through the sentence and he said, "Yes, of course I would." He loves St. George. Les loves me, loves St. George. But we're going through on the first day of Media Day in the second tour. And they do like the tours that we've dreamt of. The ones where people know about the temple and they answer all your questions. And they, they're small. Yeah. They're small group tours. So I'm looking forward to that. We're being a little bit ridiculous about it in that I'm renting a convertible and we're getting Hawaiian t-shirts that are going to match each other because that's the kind of child I am. Yeah. But yeah, we're going down to check it out. So we'll probably do some sort of social media live from the temple, the temple open house. Probably not inside, but probably outside for a little bit. So looking forward to it. Be cool.
I'm super jealous. Yeah, that'd be cool.
We'll see what it's like. I'll send you the email. There's spots available.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, we'll get you there. You have to drive yourself and rent your own convertible. Sorry.
Gotcha.
Other open houses that are coming up though.
Okinawa is happening soon. Lima, Peru, and then Orem, Utah will be happening by the end of the year.
Any word? My temple done. I think they're just like working on the grass and stuff like that. Taylorsville, Utah temple. Any word on that?
Not yet. Just awaiting an announcement.
Come on. Fingers crossed. Because right now I'm a Jordan River guy, which is like 5 minutes further from where I live. Come on. Let's get the.
That's right.
What am I out in the mission field? I love when people call it the mission field. All right. If people have any questions, they can always contact at theculturalhall.com. I will pass those temple questions along to Corey K. Ward. He finds answers and he likes the challenge. So if there is something that you want to know, he gets in the Reddit themes. He travels to places so that he can ask the people about it. All the countries, he'll go and find out whatever he can about those temple facts and temple tidbits. The temple ticker is what we call it. Corey, thanks for being with me.
Okay, thank you.